Welcome to question 89 of the Secunda Secundae. The topic for this lecture is oaths, and I am Dr. Thibault. So the topic of oaths is found under the virtue of justice and under the potential part of justice called religion, which is giving God his due. We've looked at the internal acts of religion, which were devotion and prayer. We're now looking at external acts of religion, otherwise latria, the highest degree of worship, adoration, and then we looked at external things offered, sacrifice, oblations, first fruits. And now we're looking at some of these other things which are external acts, but they belong to God. They're kind of different, so that they have their own section, these three. So oaths, again, it brings up at the beginning of the section for these three, 89, 90, and 91, this idea that something belongs to God is something taken that belongs to God that is taken by man. And the primary example of this is the sacraments, but this is covered extensively in part 3. So neither St. Thomas nor I will get into the sacraments here. But then there's the taking of God's name. So these three, 89, 90, and 91, are dealing with taking God's name, which is a taking of something divine for human purposes. And this is under still, again, religion. So an oath is something taken, is taking God's name because it is for the purpose of confirmation. It's a swearing of something. It calls upon God to witness something as a statement of being true. If you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God, you're saying God is my witness to this this statement. So it's taking God's name. It's taking God as your witness, which an interesting way of looking at it. And there's two different types of oaths. There's the declaratory oath, which is about past or present events. I swear I was there yesterday at noon, right? You either were there or you weren't. I swear I'm on my way to Mass right now. Right? If you swear, you're saying presently I'm doing this now. You're taking an oath to it. As God is my witness, I am on my way. Right? A promissory oath is something in the future, and you can see that there is a difference between a future oath and a declaratory oath. A declaratory oath has a lot less wiggle room because if you're saying something happened and you're swearing by it, then there should be certainty in that. Or if you're doing it currently, there should be certainty in that. In the future, there is no certainty about the future. If you say, I swear I'm going to go to the bank tomorrow, well, the power could be out, your car might not start there. Who knows what could happen tomorrow, right? You might have the best of intentions to do it, but a promissory oath is less sure than a declaratory oath. St. Thomas points out in Article 1, in his response to Objection 3, this idea that what good is it to have God as your witness? He's not going to come down and testify on your behalf so much, right? I swear to God this is true. Well, you're saying God is my witness that this is true. Well, God isn't going to come and say, yup, he told the truth, or nope, he's not telling the truth. God usually stays rather silent about these things. So St. Thomas says, well, God, by your public statement, God could reveal your lie, your incorrect action, and then and also God may um, you're also saying, if this is not true, may God punish me, right? And that there might be more certainty about. You don't want to take the God's name as your proof and then turn out to be a liar. So the next question is it lawful to swear at all? And of course, we're talking not about cussing, but about taking oaths, swear something to be true. Um, Now, I think if anyone even has an elementary understanding of the New Testament, you can't help but think of different lines like the Gospel of Matthew. Uh, but I say to you, do not swear at all. Let your yes be yes and your no be no. There's some certain warnings about this idea of swearing. You know, using God as your witness is more than a Christian should have to do because a Christian should always tell the truth. Um, but St. Thomas, he looks at it and he comes to a nuanced approach to this. So he says the swearing and telling the truth is not the problem. If you were to swear, swear I went to Mass last Sunday, and you did go to Mass last Sunday, then that's not the problem. It's when it's not true that's the problem. When man calls God as a witness for some trifling reason, that's when it becomes a problem. It becomes unbecoming. If you say, uh, I swear to God I did my homework. Well, this is not really of the degree in which one should be swearing to God about. I swear to God I did the dishes. I swear to God, uh, I didn't, uh, that I put the toothpaste back on the toothpaste container. These are trifle matters. This shouldn't be invoking the name of God as a witness for something so trifle, right? Court of law where a person's life is on the line in a murder um, charge against them, and that's a serious matter where you might invoke the name of God. If a person calls on God as a witness too frequently, it becomes a habit which will eventually lead to perjury. If people get into a habit of saying certain things, and they don't really mean what they're saying. They just get into a happen. You might, if you have teenage boys, you might hear them say, "I swear to God, I swear to God," right? Uh, did you do this? I did, I swear to God. Right? They just say it all the time. And eventually, if you're saying it all the time, one is probably trifle matters. So therefore, it violates the first one. The second thing is, if you say it enough, it probably you're going to start saying it for things that aren't 100% true. In which cases now you're asking God to be your witness to something that isn't true, that you lied. I swear to God I did all my homework. Well, you forgot one. Well, I swear to God I thought I did all my homework. Right? These are you use it so frequently that you might perjure yourself by using it so frequently. Um, and particularly if somebody swears and they know that they're lying, that would be another one where it's much worse than people might think that it is. You just think, oh, I just didn't tell the truth. Oh, yeah, but you also invoked God's name and you're not telling the truth. So now you're not only lied, um, you violated an oath, right? So now you've done two bad things, not just one bad thing. So not a good idea. So oaths can be good as long as you don't swear frivolously, but use it for an urgent reason and with discretion. Um, and an oath ought to be true and just. So if it's of a serious matter and it's true, then it might be appropriate to uh, take an oath, right? Where we say I swear, but to take an oath. This line, the end of the St. Thomas's response is a rash oath lacks judgment, a false oath lacks truth, and a wicked oath lacks justice. So those are the three warnings. Don't be rash, don't be false, and don't be wicked. That could be a good T-shirt. So as long as it's thought out, true, and just, then it might be okay to take an oath. Is oath an act of religion? Now, this is an interesting one in Article 4. And St. Thomas points out that if one swears to God, one acknowledges that God is more powerful than oneself, right? You don't swear on something lesser, you swear on something greater than. Um, you know, you don't go to court and swear on a box of tissues. You don't swear on a bag of Taco Bell food. You swear on the Bible, right? You swear on something greater than, um, because it has to be greater than you for it to have any meaning that there's been an oath. Um, by reason of his unfailing truth uh, and his universal knowledge is another reason why you swear to God. Why? Because God is truth, and he knows all that is true. God sees everything. He has that universal knowledge. So because God sees everything, God knows everything, God's judge of everything. Therefore, if you swear to God, you're acknowledging that, right? You're acknowledging that God has universal knowledge. God is the truth, and God is proper judge. Um, and in some sense, it acknowledges that God deserves reverence. That you wouldn't lie to God. You wouldn't lie and use God as your witness, because that would be irreverent. So in some ways, because it kind of indirectly points to God, the virtues of God, the greatness of God, therefore, kind of indirectly um, is an act of religion. Um, should we make more oaths? If you recall from vows, question 88, the view of vows was that they're very good, right? If you vow something, you are elevating your intentions, and if you keep your vows, then there's a double virtue, the virtue of religion, because vow is an act of religion, and then there's the vow, then there's the good of the act itself. So it's doubly meritorious. So, and so more vows the better, in some sense. Um, but oaths are more oaths better. And St. Thomas says, no, it's a bit more like medicine. So there's been um, some wrong in some way. Uh, and then your truthfulness on this matters as a remedy to the injustice that's been done. If you're always testifying in court uh, as a witness, there's a question about, well, where are you that you're always a witness to crimes, right? Um, uh, if you did witness a crime, then you could go take an oath of honesty to God and be a witness to bring about justice. But it shouldn't be happening on a weekly basis. This just should be fairly a rare situation. Your truthfulness in the matter is like a medicine, but you shouldn't be having medicine all the time, right? It's not something desirable for its own sake, right? Whereas a vow is a promise directed towards God, that builds a relationship with God. This oath of God constantly being your witness to everything is not really relationship building material. Um, it's not desirable for its own sake. Uh, and swearing too much leads to a problem, which is why the Lord forbids it, right? You're going to tell some lies, or you're going to use it too frivolously, or for the wrong purpose. It's just it doesn't. There's no added benefit of an oath, unlike uh, vows. It's not to an added benefit to take an oath. So it should be used minimally, sparingly, and powerfully when they're done, but infrequently. How about swearing by creatures? Now, this probably happens a lot. Right? People say, "I swear on my mother's soul." have a lot of remembrances back to my foster children and their friends. Um, uh, so if you swear as God is your witness directly, the typical form of oath, then since God is truth, you are swearing directly to God as your witness. Whereas if you swear to a creature, then it doesn't have the same value. But um, if we think of Christ as the sun in the sky, uh, God's creatures are like the moon. They reflect the light of the sun. So, in that regard, um, uh, creatures are you can swear by creatures insofar as you are recognizing that they are a reflection um, of the sun. They're a reflection of God, not in and of themselves. So, if somebody says, "I swear on my mother's soul," in some ways that is recognizing God in them because it's their soul that you're swearing on, right? So perhaps not the best phraseology, uh, maybe not the best intention, but but if it is still aiming back to God directly or indirectly, then in some sense it's recognizing the reverence which ought to be directed towards God. Therefore, it still is an act of religion, um, and you shouldn't be false against it because it's a reflection on that reverence owed to God. Um, Now, do oaths bind people? Now, these last three articles, they're somewhat similar um, to oaths a little bit. If question 88. So, um, one of those promissory oaths, remember oaths that are in the future, they bind so far, an oath of the past. Well, do they bind? Yes, because you're talking about the past. It happened. You either told the truth or you didn't tell the truth. How about oaths about the future? Well, um, they're only binding insofar as they are good. So, if we think back, the beheading of John the Baptist, um, Herod promises his daughter, "If you do this dance, I'll give you anything." Right? He took an oath to his daughter. "If you do this, God is my witness, I will give you anything." Well, her mother convinces her to ask for the head of John the Baptist. Well, should Herod have given his daughter the head of John the Baptist, a righteous prophet? Uh, well, no. He should have violated his oath because it was an unjust um, the daughter made an unjust request. Therefore, it would be better to break the oath than to kill an innocent person. Um, an oath has no power if it lacks the proper judgment and discretion. So an oath is only um, should only be kept when it's just. That would be really straightforward. Um, God doesn't bind you to do something unjust. The last part of this is kind of an interesting one too. God does not allow you to be deceptive in his role within somebody taking an oath. So, people, particularly lawyers, those lawyers, they can be very crafty with their words, where what they are saying is said in such a way that the most obvious interpretation by the person listening is not what they're saying. I did not have sex with that woman, for example. The Bill Clinton quote, trying to redefine what does the word is mean, something like that, right? So, if a person is swearing under oath to God and using their words deceptively in order to deceive the listener, God isn't going to support deception. So, uh, the what the person that you're trying to deceive is hearing is what you're being held to the standard of, not the cleverness of your words. Um, Maybe the court will follow the fine print in the contract, but in terms of God, he judges things on their face, not on the fine print. Oaths and vows. Which is greater? Which is better? Well, vows deal with since you're taking a vow to God, promise to God that you have both virtues of reverence and fidelity to God in that, in taking a vow. Whereas an oath only deals with reverence, right? The virtue of an oath, the part that leads to uh, um, an act of religion is that it has reverence. So God, though, is the indirect object of an oath. Um, right? If the purpose of taking an oath is, I swear to God that I was not there yesterday, the point is to convince the person you're talking to, not with God. God is indirect in that relationship versus a vow, which is to God directly. So there is a difference. So therefore, breaking an oath is not as bad as breaking a vow. Um, just as a matter of numbers, breaking a vow breaks two virtues versus breaking an oath breaks one virtue. I think it also is fair to say that breaking a vow to God is worse than uh, taking advantage of his good name. Um, a dispensation from an oath, since a vow can be dispensed of, and a vow is greater than an oath, therefore an oath can be dispensed of. And it's for the same reasons that a vow can be dispensed of. A vow is taken for the betterment of a person. If it doesn't lead to your betterment, it doesn't lead to betterment, it shouldn't be followed, right? If it leads into sin or problems, then that's not the purpose of it. So you can just be dispensed from it, probably. Um, if you want to know all the details to that, look at question 88. But if it's no longer leading to a betterment, then maybe you should be dispersed. For example, the example of Herod beheading John the Baptist. He should have abandoned that oath. Oaths voided by the condition of person or time. Now, this is a section where you really, if you read the whole thing, you'll understand the detail of this much greater. It's a lot of depth to it. But for example, children are not held to oaths. We don't let children take oaths because they are not fully rational and they don't understand fully the rationality, and so they can't be held to the standard of really making an oath. A child, a 4-year-old child, did you eat that cookie in the cookie jar? I swear to God, I didn't eat the cookie. And he has chocolate all over his face. Oh, is he a mortal sin for taking the Lord's name in vain? Well, no, because he's only a child. So the greater uh, thing that is sworn, and the greater the person who swears it, the more an oath is binding. So, the President of the United States makes uh, t- takes an oath. They have a great responsibility and a great attention is put on them. Therefore, they should be held to a greater standard. If the Pope were to take an oath, we should believe the Pope. If a priest were to take an oath, we should hold them to a high standard on that oath. Um, if just some teenager makes a statement and takes an oath, um, we don't really expect them to hold it as seriously as these other people. So it's less valid in some ways, uh, and also the subject matter. If it's over somebody who was witness to a murder, that should be very serious. Forgetting to put the cap on the toothpaste, not very serious. So you have to look at the conditions as well. So in conclusion, uh, an oath is to swear something. It's a confirmation of something. Uh, it is lawful to take an oath if it is correct matter for it. It's not uh, frivolous things. It's not a lie. It must not be rash, false, or wicked. three conditions. Swearing to God properly acknowledges the reverence due to God. Oaths should not be something that we do frequently. They should be done very sparingly and for important matters. One can swear through creatures, but not to creatures. To creatures. So because we can swear to a creature so far as it points to the reverence owed to God. You know, us to swear on the Bible, for example, is a creature, right? But it's not the book, not the paper of the book is what the book represents. Uh, Therefore, that would be more valid. Um, Oaths are binding if, again, they're correct. If it's something they should never have made an oath about, then they might be dispensed of. But as long as the oath was proper matter, it should be binding. Uh, Vows are more binding since they're promises to God. Oaths can be dispensed again, and uh, the greater the person and the greater the subject, the greater the oath, which is just a very practical approach. Okay, well, that's all I have for this topic.